AITA for ruining my sister's wedding because I refused to lie to her fiancé. So, this is going to be a long one, but I'll try to keep it as organized as possible. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F. We've always had a bit of a rocky relationship, typical sibling stuff, but I love her. Our parents have been divorced since I was 12, and they were both complicated, to say the least. I always ended up being the responsible one, the one who had to pick up the slack, which probably explains a lot of the tension between us. Emily got engaged last year to this guy, Jason, 27M. When she told me, I was honestly happy for her. Jason seemed nice enough in the beginning. He was charming, polite, and seemed genuinely interested in my sister's happiness. As the engagement went on, however, I started noticing some red flags. About 6 months before the wedding, I had a conversation with Jason alone. He started talking about how important appearances are and how people don't need to know everything about a family. At first, I didn't think much of it, but the more I interacted with him, the more controlling he seemed. He'd comment on how Emily dressed, the way she spent money, and even small things about how she spoke or laughed. It was subtle at first, and Emily was in love, so she didn't notice or didn't want to notice. Fast forward a few months, and things escalated. I found out from a mutual friend of theirs that Jason had a history of cheating in past relationships, some of which ended very badly because of emotional manipulation and controlling behavior. My friend tried to warn Emily, but she said it wasn't their place to interfere. I felt uneasy, but I didn't want to betray my sister's trust, so I didn't say anything immediately. 2 months before the wedding, Emily and I were having a girls' night. I noticed she seemed stressed and a little not herself. I asked her what was going on, and after some hesitation, she mentioned Jason had been getting upset about certain guests being invited, people he didn't like or consider appropriate. Then she told me he had made some really hurtful comments about my family, saying we were embarrassing and too dramatic, and that if she wanted to marry him, she'd have to cut ties with us. I was shocked. Emily, on the other hand, was defensive. She said he was just joking and that she didn't want me to mess things up. Here's where it gets messy. About a month before the wedding, Emily asked me to help her with the seating chart. I noticed Jason had excluded my mom entirely, which I understood. Our mom and Jason didn't get along, but he also suggested we lie to certain relatives about why she wasn't invited. Essentially, he wanted me to provide cover stories for why people couldn't come, even though it was purely his decision to exclude them. I told Emily I wasn't comfortable lying to anyone. I said I could help with the seating chart, but I wouldn't fabricate stories to make it seem like there was a legitimate reason some family couldn't attend. Emily got very defensive, saying, "If you ruin this wedding, I'll never forgive you." I thought she was exaggerating at the time. A week before the wedding, I got a text from Emily asking me to confirm that I could manage the guest list lies. I replied honestly, I couldn't. She didn't respond for a while, and then things exploded. She called me hysterical, saying I was choosing her fiancé over her and being selfish. She insisted that if I didn't comply, I'd have to leave the wedding entirely. I told her I wasn't going to lie, and if that was a deal breaker, so be it. I thought that was the end of it, but it wasn't. At the rehearsal dinner, tension was palpable. Jason had apparently told Emily that if I came at all, he might not show up, which put her in tears. I try to be supportive, but I also try to maintain my boundaries. I didn't engage in lying or defending him, just quietly made my way through the dinner. Some of the extended family noticed the tension and tried to ask me what was wrong, but I just said I couldn't comment. The day of the wedding was chaotic. Before the ceremony, Emily cornered me and begged me again to go along with the stories about certain relatives not being able to attend. I refused calmly. She yelled at me, calling me selfish and dramatic, and stormed off. At that point, Jason came over and said I was poisoning Emily's special day and that I needed to stay out of their business. I didn't argue. I just stepped aside. Here's the kicker. When the ceremony started, several of the relatives Jason had excluded showed up anyway. Apparently, they had been told nothing, but found out through other channels. Jason freaked out, and Emily had a complete meltdown. She was crying, yelling at people, and ended up blaming me directly in front of everyone, saying I had ruined everything by not going along with the plan. Some relatives tried to defend me, saying I had been honest and had nothing to do with his decisions, but Emily wasn't listening. By the end of the night, I left early because I couldn't handle the tension, and I haven't really spoken to her since. She's been posting on social media about how family drama ruined her perfect day, and everyone assumes I'm the villain. I get it. Her wedding day was supposed to be special. But I honestly feel like Jason's behavior was manipulative, controlling, and frankly toxic, and lying to make it look like it wasn't what have made me complicit. I didn't try to ruin the wedding. I just refused to lie. My parents are devastated and angry at Emily for blaming me, but I feel like she'll never see it that way. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to lie to cover Jason's behavior and, in the process, apparently ruining my sister's wedding? Or am I justified in protecting my integrity, even if it meant Emily's big day wasn't perfect? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and motivates me to keep creating more great content. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thanks so much for your support. AITA for refusing to give my sister a large sum of money after she asked me to invest in her business. This has been eating at me for weeks, and I honestly can't tell if I'm the asshole here or not. I, 29M, have a sister, Sarah, 31F, and we've always had a complicated relationship. She's very ambitious, but also extremely impulsive, and I've spent years tiptoeing around her moods because she tends to overreact. Our parents passed away when I was in my early 20s, and since then, we've been essentially each other's family. That said, I've learned over time that helping Sarah financially is a minefield. A few weeks ago, she called me out of the blue, sounding unusually excited. She's been talking about opening her own business for years. Sometimes it's a cafe, sometimes a boutique, sometimes an online store, but she claimed that this idea was different. This time, she had a detailed business plan, market research, and even a mock-up website. She said she was launching a sustainable lifestyle brand focused on eco-friendly products. I admit, it sounded impressive. But then came the ask. She wanted me to invest $25,000 into it. Now, to clarify, I make a decent living, but I don't have money to burn. $25,000 is a huge chunk of my savings, and I have my own plans. I'm saving for a down payment on a house and want to have a cushion for emergencies. I told her I couldn't give her that kind of money. I offered to help in other ways, giving advice on marketing, connecting her with a few contacts I know, and even helping her set up a crowdfunding campaign. But she insisted that I was the only person who could help her really get this off the ground, and that this investment would pay off in a year, maybe two. I refused. I tried to explain that I love her and want her to succeed, but I couldn't risk my financial stability. I even suggested a smaller amount, like $2,000, which would be more of a token contribution, but she said that wouldn't be enough to make the business viable. That's when things got tense. She started saying that I was being selfish, that I don't believe in her, and that I was basically abandoning her dreams. She also brought up that she had helped me in the past financially when I was struggling in college, which is true. She did lend me some money back then. But I felt like that was a completely different situation because I was literally broke, not just unwilling to risk a massive sum for an improving business. Over the next few days, Sarah sent me long texts and even a couple of voicemails, all outlining how successful this business could be and how I was throwing away the chance of a lifetime. She then posted something on social media that seemed directed at me about how some people don't support the dreams of their own family, which I'm assuming was about our argument. Our mutual friends messaged me asking what happened, so it's clear the drama is spreading. I told her I was willing to support her in every way except financially to the tune of $25,000. I offered to brainstorm marketing strategies, help her design her website, and even help her look for small investors or loans that wouldn't put me at risk. But she keeps coming back to this idea that I'm obligated to fund her dream. A couple of people in my friend circle have said I'm being reasonable, but others have said that family helps each other and that I'm being cold. I get that argument to some extent, but at the same time, this is a huge financial risk, and I don't think anyone should be pressured into it. The worst part is that this argument has made me feel guilty, even though I know I can't just throw away my savings. I'm worried that she's angry enough to distance herself from me completely. But I also don't want to start my adult life financially unstable because I was guilted into funding her business. I've suggested alternatives like crowdfunding, small loans, angel investors, or even taking on a business partner. But every time I bring these up, she dismisses them, saying they're too slow or not ambitious enough. I don't think I'm being unreasonable. I want my sister to succeed, and I genuinely want to help. But there's a line between supporting someone and putting yourself at serious financial risk. She keeps telling me I don't believe in her, but I think I've been very clear about supporting her in ways that don't jeopardize my future. I've also started wondering if there's something else going on, like maybe she wants control of my money, or maybe she genuinely doesn't understand how risky her plan is. I honestly don't know. So Reddit, AITA here for refusing to give my sister $25,000 for her business? I feel like she's twisting my refusal into some moral failing on my part, but at the same time, I know that giving her that money could seriously jeopardize my own stability. I just want to do the right thing without being taken advantage of. AITA. So, this has been eating at me for weeks, and I honestly don't even know if I'm overreacting or if I have a legitimate reason to be upset. I'll try to make this as clear as possible without leaving out any crucial details. I, 28F, have been married to my husband, Mark, 30M, for 5 years. We've generally had a solid relationship, but we've had our fair share of disagreements. Nothing major, mostly just typical couple stuff like finances, household chores, and differing social preferences. Mark comes from a family that is extremely close-knit, which is great most of the time, but sometimes it can feel overwhelming. About a month ago, Mark's younger sister, Emily, 25F, got engaged. We were invited to the engagement party, which was a small gathering at her parents' house. Normally, I'd be excited about this sort of thing, but Emily has always been a little demanding, I guess is the right word. She tends to treat her older brother and his wife like they're extensions of her own personal staff rather than their own people with lives and boundaries. Anyway, at the engagement party, Emily made an announcement that she wanted to do a weekend bachelorette getaway with just her friends and her sisters-in-law. That's me and Mark's other 2 sisters. I've never been particularly close to them, but I thought, fine, I'll go along. I didn't expect the trip to become this huge issue. Fast forward 2 weeks, Emily sends out the official invites. She's rented a house in the mountains for the weekend, and she explicitly lists all the things we're expected to do. Cooking breakfast for everyone, cleaning up constantly, organizing games, and making sure everything runs smoothly. There's also a long list of things we're supposed to pack and bring, including specific snacks, drinks, and decorations. She even said in the message, and I quote, "You all are basically my little helpers for the weekend, so don't let me down." At this point, I started feeling a little uneasy. I didn't mind helping a little, but the way it was worded felt like she was treating me like staff, not family. I mentioned to Mark that I was concerned, and he brushed it off, saying, "It's Emily. She just gets excited. Don't take it personally." I try to let it go, thinking maybe I was overreacting. The day of the trip comes, and as soon as we arrive, it becomes clear this isn't going to be a relaxing weekend at all. Emily immediately starts barking orders. "You make the coffee. Can you organize these games? We need someone to handle the snacks while I do my makeup." And every time I try to offer input, she would either ignore me or outright tell me my idea wasn't good enough. I try to stay polite and just help where I could, but it felt like I was invisible unless I was serving her needs. At one point, she asked me to make a homemade cake from scratch because store-bought is not good enough for my bachelorette. I tried to politely say that I didn't have the time or skills to make a cake from scratch on such short notice, but she got visibly upset. She said, "I can't believe you're making this hard for me. You're supposed to be family." Mark was standing right there and didn't intervene. Things kept escalating throughout the weekend. She would demand certain people follow her around to help with tasks while she relaxed. And anytime I spoke up to say I needed a break, she'd roll her eyes or make passive-aggressive comments in front of everyone. Mark kept telling me to just let her have this or she's just excited. But at this point, it was beyond excitement. It was controlling and exhausting. The breaking point came on Sunday morning. I had stayed up late the night before helping Emily clean up after a party she had thrown in the house without telling anyone, and I was exhausted. I just wanted a quiet morning with a cup of coffee before we packed up. Emily, however, had other plans. She came into the kitchen with a massive list of breakfast items she expected me to prepare, including multiple elaborate dishes she had clearly copied from Pinterest. I told her, politely but firmly, that I was not going to make all of that and that I needed a break. She completely lost it. She yelled, "I can't believe you're doing this. You've been nothing but lazy this entire trip. You're supposed to be helping me, and you're ruining everything." At that moment, I snapped. I told her that I wasn't her employee, that I had a life outside of her engagement, and that she was treating me like I was a servant rather than family. I also said that Mark should have backed me up instead of letting her treat me this way. The room went silent. Mark looked uncomfortable, and Emily was furious. She spent the rest of the morning giving me dirty looks and whispering about how I ruined the weekend to everyone else. Mark didn't defend me at all and just kept apologizing to her. I felt humiliated. I packed my things, told him I was leaving, and drove home alone. When I got home, I sent Mark a long text explaining why I was upset. I told him I felt disrespected and that he needed to set boundaries with his sister. He replied that I was overreacting and that I should have just been patient and understood how excited she was. We argued for hours over text, and he finally said that if I had known how Emily would be, I could have just stayed home instead of coming. Since then, the entire family has been giving me the cold shoulder. Emily has sent me a few passive-aggressive texts about being difficult and not being supportive of her big day. Mark says I should just let it go and that I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. I feel like I've been treated unfairly, like my time and energy were completely disregarded, and that I have every right to be upset. But now I'm starting to doubt myself. Maybe I'm being too sensitive? Maybe I should have just gone along with everything to avoid conflict? Part of me feels like if I speak up again, it will only make things worse. But another part of me feels like I'm allowed to have boundaries and expect basic respect from my own family. So Reddit, AITA for standing up to my sister-in-law and leaving the bachelorette weekend early? Or should I have just sucked it up to avoid conflict? Character count, 6,452 if you want. I can also craft a second version that is even more dramatic and guaranteed to hit top Reddit-style engagement. It would be slightly longer and include more detailed family dynamics. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding because I wasn't included in the planning and my role as a bridesmaid was dismissed. So, this all started about 6 months ago when my younger sister, Lisa, got engaged. I'm 28. She's 24. Growing up, I've always been the responsible older sibling, the one who managed things and kept everyone in check. Naturally, I was excited when she got engaged because I assumed I'd be deeply involved in the planning. After all, she's my sister, and I thought that's what families do. A few weeks after the engagement, Lisa announced that she wanted a small, intimate wedding. That was fine with me. But soon, the definition of small became very, very clear. Her fiancé, Tom, insisted that it be only immediate family, no friends, and only a few extended family members. Lisa seemed to want to make me happy, so she didn't outright argue with him, but she also didn't include me in any discussions about vendors, venues, or even the guest list. I tried to step in gently. I offered suggestions for florists, caterers, and even dresses. At first, she seemed to appreciate it, but every time I made a suggestion, Tom dismissed it outright, saying things like, "We already have this covered," or "That's too expensive." Lisa didn't say anything to me about it, which I thought was strange because normally she'd at least mention it. Eventually, I realized that I wasn't being asked for advice at all. A month later, she told me I'd be a bridesmaid. At first, I was excited, but then she dropped the bomb that I would be responsible for paying for my dress, shoes, hair, and makeup. She didn't even mention a budget for these things, and when I asked, she said, "It's up to you. Just make it work." I tried to express that this was unreasonable, especially considering the dress she picked was $600 plus accessories, and the hairstyle and makeup will be another $300 minimum. She brushed it off, saying, "Well, everyone pays for themselves." Around this time, I started noticing things that bothered me more and more. She never asked for my input on any aspect of the wedding. My suggestions for things like the schedule, the menu, and the decorations were ignored completely. She even told me in passing that she and Tom were going to hire a planner and that I didn't need to worry about it. I asked if I could at least help with the timeline or logistics, and she said, "No, it's fine. The planner has it covered." I should mention that my parents offered to pay for part of the wedding. Normally, that's what would happen in our family, but Lisa and Tom declined. They wanted it all on their own, which I respected at first. But then I noticed that Tom's parents were paying for quite a bit of it. So suddenly, it wasn't small and intimate. It was your sister pays for herself, I pay for everything else. I finally had enough when Lisa sent me a spreadsheet of expenses, which included things like bridal party gifts, bachelorette party costs, and emergency fund contributions. I had no say in any of these things. The total was $2,500. I tried to talk to Lisa about it, saying, "This seems really unfair. I'm happy to help, but I want to be included in decisions if I'm spending this much money." She said, "Well, that's just part of being in the wedding party," and that was that. Last weekend, the straw that broke the camel's back happened. The bridal shower was hosted by Tom's mom, and she invited all of Lisa's friends except me. No one even mentioned it to me. I found out through a mutual friend when I saw pictures online. I called Lisa, upset, and said, "I can't believe you didn't tell me about this. I feel like I'm being treated like I don't exist in your life right now." Her response was that she didn't think I'd want to come because I hadn't seemed interested in helping. I tried to explain that it wasn't about interest, it was about being excluded, but she dismissed me. So, after a lot of thought, I told Lisa that I wasn't going to pay for any wedding-related expenses until I was actually included in the planning and treated like part of the family. I even said I would still attend, but I wasn't giving her money that I had no input on. She called me selfish, said I was ruining her wedding, and accused me of making everything about myself. Tom called me dramatic and said that if I didn't pay, I shouldn't be in the wedding party at all. Now, my parents are upset with me because they think I'm being unreasonable and that it's just a wedding. My friends are divided. Some say I should suck it up, and some say I have a point about being treated like a cash cow. Lisa hasn't spoken to me for 2 weeks, and I feel guilty, but also frustrated because I truly tried to be involved and wasn't allowed. So AITA for refusing to pay for the wedding until I'm included in the planning and my concerns are acknowledged? I feel like I'm being punished for trying to stand up for myself, but everyone else seems to think I'm overreacting. I just don't want to spend thousands of dollars to be treated like I don't exist. AITA for refusing to lend my brother money after he caused his own financial problems? So a little context first. I, 32F, have always been the responsible sibling in my family. My younger brother, Matt, 28M, has a history of making questionable financial decisions. Growing up, our parents were pretty lenient with him, which meant he never really learned to budget or save. I, on the other hand, have always been very conscious about money, savings, and planning ahead. Over the years, I've had to make peace with the fact that my brother is reckless and that my parents' enabling habits didn't help him. Fast forward to now. I recently bought my first house, a small but cozy place I saved up for over 5 years. I'm really proud of it, and it's been a lot of work. Around the same time, my brother got a new job, which initially seemed like a great step up for him. However, a few months into his new role, he started asking me for advice about his finances. That, on its own, isn't a problem. I'm happy to give guidance, but it quickly became clear he wanted more than advice. A couple of weeks ago, Matt called me out of the blue and told me that he was in a tough spot. Apparently, he had spent a lot of money on a new car, which he didn't really need, some expensive vacations and high-end electronics, and now he was behind on rent and credit card payments. He asked if I could lend him $5,000 to cover the next few months so he wouldn't get evicted or default on his cards. I was shocked because he's been asking for money every few months for years, and I've always said no. I explained to him that I could not, in good conscience, lend him money after seeing him repeatedly make bad financial choices. This didn't go over well. He got extremely upset and accused me of being selfish and not caring about family. He argued that since I'm in a better financial situation, I have a moral obligation to help him. He even threatened to tell our parents that I'm refusing to help him, knowing they would pressure me. I stood my ground and said that while I care about him, I cannot fix problems he has created for himself, especially when I've seen him do the same thing repeatedly. I also offered to help him create a budget or find a financial counselor, but lending money wasn't an option. After our conversation, he posted something vague on social media about family abandoning family, and some people don't care unless it benefits them, which I assume is about me. Our parents have also subtly hinted that I should help him, but I've been firm in my decision. My friends all think I'm doing the right thing because enabling him financially isn't actually helping him. However, I'm starting to feel guilty because my brother is now claiming he's struggling to pay rent, and I keep imagining him in a real crisis. I also feel pressure from my parents, who are pushing the narrative that I should just help him out this one time. The thing is, if I do lend him the money, there's a very high chance he will spend it the same way he spent everything else and end up in the same situation again. I'm also worried about the impact on my own finances if I lend him that amount, as it would significantly reduce my savings. To complicate things further, Matt has a habit of framing his problems as emergencies. In the past, he has made the same urgent appeals for help, and when I refused, he either handled it himself or the situation resolved without catastrophic consequences. That pattern makes me feel like this might be another fake crisis, but at the same time, I don't want to completely disregard him if he genuinely needs help. I guess my main concern is whether I'm being harsh or unsympathetic. I do care about my brother, but I also believe that part of caring for someone is not enabling behavior that harms them in the long run. I've tried to be supportive in ways that don't involve giving him money, like helping him draft a budget, suggesting cheaper alternatives, and even researching community assistance programs, but it doesn't seem to be enough for him. Recently, our relationship has become tense. He barely speaks to me outside of asking for advice or help, and every family gathering has been awkward because he and my parents are clearly unhappy with me. I feel like I'm constantly walking on eggshells and defending my decision. At the same time, I can't shake the feeling that if I give him the money, it will only reinforce a cycle that will eventually harm both of us. I've also thought about the potential long-term effects. If I give him money now, he may continue to rely on me for financial bailouts in the future, and I really don't want our relationship to be defined by money. I want him to learn responsibility, but it feels like that lesson is one he has to learn the hard way. Still, the guilt is gnawing at me. I keep wondering if I'm being cold or if there is some compromise I'm missing that would allow me to help him without falling into the enabling trap. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to lend my brother money after he repeatedly mismanaged his finances and is now claiming he's in crisis? AITA, 29F, recently went through a situation with my family that has left me questioning if I'm in the wrong. I've always been someone who tries to maintain peace and respect boundaries, but apparently, what I consider reasonable isn't shared by everyone in my family. I'll try to explain everything as clearly as possible. A little background. I grew up in a fairly traditional household. My parents, now in their mid-50s, have always been quite involved in my life, and while I have a close relationship with them, they can be overbearing. I also have a younger brother, 25M, who has a history of taking advantage of family generosity. My family has a pattern of doing things for him without him earning it, and it's caused tension in the past. I've tried to step back from enabling him, but that often creates friction. Recently, I got promoted at work to a position that requires me to manage a team and also travel occasionally. It's a step up I've been working toward for years, and I'm proud of myself. Alongside this, I've been renting my own apartment for a few years and living independently, which has given me a sense of autonomy I really value. I love my family, but I also like having boundaries and control over my life. The issue started when my brother announced he wanted to move to the city where I live. He claimed he had big plans and thought it would be good for us to live close. I was hesitant because living together or even nearby has never worked well in the past. He's messy, loud, and has a habit of inviting his friends over without asking, often making my apartment feel more like a hostel than a home. I told him honestly that I couldn't accommodate him, but I offered to help him find his own place. He initially accepted, but then I found out he had gone behind my back and asked my parents to pressure me into letting him move in. My parents called me multiple times, telling me I was being selfish and needed to help my brother because he had nowhere else to go. They even mentioned that since I have a bigger apartment and make more money, I should be responsible for him. I tried explaining that supporting him financially or letting him move in isn't the same as being a good sibling, but they wouldn't hear it. Things escalated when my parents showed up at my apartment unannounced with my brother in tow. They told me he would be staying for at least a month while he got settled. I was shocked. I told them this was not okay, that I wasn't going to kick him out onto the street, but I also wasn't going to let him take over my home. My brother rolled his eyes and said I was overreacting. My parents kept insisting I owe him this because he's my brother and because they raised me to be a caring person. I ended up setting some firm boundaries. He could stay for a week, but he had to respect my space and pay some rent for utilities. I thought this was fair, but my family reacted as if I had declared war. My brother sulked the entire time, leaving dirty dishes, staying up all night with friends, and refusing to contribute to anything. My parents would drop in randomly to check on him and complain about me being unreasonable. After a week, I asked him to find another place, which he begrudgingly did. Since then, my parents have been avoiding me and sending passive-aggressive messages about how I treat family like strangers and how I don't care about anyone but myself. My brother occasionally messages me asking if he can come back just for a few days and framing it as a favor I should do for him. I've stuck to my boundaries, but it's exhausting and emotionally draining. I feel like I did nothing wrong. I allowed him to stay temporarily, I helped him look for an apartment, and I set reasonable expectations for his stay. At the same time, my parents and brother are making me feel guilty for having a normal expectation that guests respect my home and contribute in some way. My friends have said I handled it well, but my family makes me doubt myself constantly. I love my brother, but living with him or giving him long-term financial support isn't something I can do. I value my independence and mental well-being, and I feel like my family is refusing to respect that. They act like family loyalty requires sacrificing your own life for other people, and I'm not sure that's a reasonable expectation. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for setting boundaries and refusing to let my brother move in indefinitely, even with my parents' pressure? AITA for refusing to invite my sister's new boyfriend to my wedding after he embarrassed her family at my engagement party. I, 29F, have been engaged to my fiancé, Dan, 31M, for about 6 months, and we started planning our wedding shortly after. We live in a medium-sized city, and while I have a big extended family, I wanted a relatively intimate wedding with close friends and family, roughly 80 to 100 people. Dan's family is smaller, so the guest list ended up leaning a bit more toward my side. About a year ago, my younger sister, Emily, 25F, started dating someone new, Mark, 27M. I had met him a couple of times at family gatherings and thought he seemed nice enough, though a bit awkward. Emily is very protective of him, so I didn't want to judge too harshly based on limited interactions. Fast forward to our engagement party, which we hosted at a local restaurant with about 40 people, mostly immediate family and a few close friends. We wanted it small and casual, nothing over the top. Most people were seated at tables, chatting and eating, and things were going smoothly until dinner. Mark got drunk, way too drunk, despite being told the bar had a limited number of drinks per person. He started loudly criticizing the food, calling the steak dry and the salad sad, and then made a long, rambling speech about how he thought the restaurant didn't understand culinary excellence. People tried to laugh it off, but it was painfully awkward. Then, in the middle of his rant, he loudly brought up a very personal topic about Emily's family, specifically some financial struggles that her parents had gone through recently. It was completely inappropriate, and my parents were embarrassed and visibly uncomfortable. Emily tried to intervene, but Mark ignored her and kept going until my fiancé had to politely but firmly guide him away from the room. The rest of the evening was tense. Emily was mortified and apologized multiple times, but she seemed frustrated that people were still talking about Mark the next day. My parents were upset and said that what he did was incredibly rude and embarrassing. Since then, Emily has been insistent that we invite Mark to the wedding. Dan and I discussed it extensively, and he agreed with me that Mark's behavior at the engagement party was a huge red flag. We don't want someone at our wedding who might repeat something like that on our big day. Dan has also expressed concern about potential drama and the fact that he gets drunk very easily. Emily, however, has been extremely upset. She says that we are punishing her boyfriend for a one-time mistake and that we are being unfair. She's even said that if Mark isn't invited, she might not come to the wedding at all. My parents and most of my extended family support our decision, saying that it's our wedding and we should prioritize the comfort of everyone, including ourselves. Emily's friends have been pressuring her too, telling her that it's unreasonable of us to exclude someone she cares about. Here's where things get messy. Emily has started posting on social media about how my sister doesn't want me to be happy, and some people just care more about appearances than family, and she's tagging Mark in a few posts. My mom called me in tears the other day, saying she doesn't want the family to be divided. I've tried explaining that it's not about punishing Emily, but about making sure our wedding day is calm and enjoyable. I also suggested that Mark could be invited to the rehearsal dinner or another event where the stakes aren't as high. But Emily says that's not the same. I feel stuck. On one hand, I know Emily is upset, and I don't want to hurt my relationship with her. On the other hand, I really do not want Mark at our wedding because of the previous incident. Dan and I are getting anxious because RSVPs are coming in, and I don't want last-minute drama or tension at what's supposed to be one of the happiest days of our lives. My fiancé and I have considered talking to Mark directly, explaining that his behavior at the engagement party made us uncomfortable and that we can't risk a repeat at the wedding. Emily says that would be humiliating and that we are essentially asking Mark to grovel, which she finds insulting. I understand that Emily sees this as loyalty to her relationship, but I can't help feeling like the wedding is a special event that we should control. I want it to be memorable for all the right reasons, not for awkward speeches and embarrassing revelations. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to invite my sister's boyfriend to my wedding after his behavior at my engagement party. AITA for refusing to let my mother dictate how I spend my inheritance and causing a huge family fight. I, 33F, recently came into an inheritance from my late grandfather, who passed away about 6 months ago. He was very close to me, and, unlike some family members, he always appreciated that I live a modest life and work hard. When he passed, I inherited a sum that's life-changing for me, enough to pay off my debts, buy a small house, and have some savings for the future. I had no idea he was leaving anything significant until I received the letter from the lawyer. When I first told my family, everyone congratulated me, but my mother, 58F, immediately started making suggestions. At first, they seemed reasonable. She suggested putting some in a savings or helping my siblings, but quickly, she became more controlling. She insisted that I should buy a bigger house, invest in property, and even use some of the money to help her financially because family comes first. I explained that I want to be responsible, but I also want to do things on my own terms. My mother didn't take it well. She said I was being selfish and that I owed it to the family to make choices they approve of. I tried to set boundaries, saying that my inheritance is legally mine and that my grandfather wanted me to have it for whatever I needed or wanted. My mother got angry and began telling extended family that I was being greedy and selfish. She even said at a family dinner that I was forgetting my roots and that my grandfather would be ashamed if he saw how I was handling the money. This was humiliating because everyone looked at me like I had done something wrong, even though I hadn't spent any of it yet. I decided to buy a small house in my city and pay off my student loans. I also set aside a portion for travel and personal growth, which I've been dreaming about for years, but never could afford. When I told my mother, she completely lost it. She said I was being reckless, accused me of ignoring the needs of the family, and claimed I was turning into my father, who she has always said is selfish. I calmly tried to explain that I was making responsible choices and that helping family financially was not something I could be forced to do. The situation escalated when my siblings got involved. My brother, 35M, told me that my mother is right and that I should have considered using some of the inheritance to help the family. My younger sister, 29F, initially supported me, but she said I was being difficult and that it might be easier to just do what Mom says. I refused to budge, and my mother started ignoring me entirely, giving me cold looks at family events and refusing to talk to me on the phone. She also started making posts on social media about how ungrateful I am for the family support I've had my whole life. One of the most painful incidents was during my grandfather's memorial service. My mother gave a speech that subtly criticized me for being selfish and materialistic, implying that I was only thinking of myself after his passing. Several extended family members approached me afterward, some supportive and some quietly judgmental. I felt humiliated, but I refused to apologize because I honestly believe I am doing nothing wrong. I've had friends and colleagues tell me that I'm right to make my own decisions about the inheritance and that my mother is overstepping. Some of them even said it sounds like she's trying to control me in ways that are emotionally manipulative. I've tried to remain calm, but I am hurt because my mother is someone I have always been close to, and now our relationship is strained. Recently, my mother told me she won't speak to me again unless I agree to her family plan for the inheritance. My siblings are torn, with some siding with her and some quietly supporting me. I've tried to explain that boundaries don't mean I don't love my family, but she refuses to listen. I'm trying to focus on my life and use the inheritance responsibly, but it's exhausting to feel constantly judged and attacked by the person I am closest to. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my mother dictate how I spend my inheritance, even though it has caused a huge fight and created tension with my siblings and extended family. Character count, 6,412 if you want. I can create a version with more dramatic escalation, including family members taking sides, passive-aggressive wedding-style drama, and even potential legal threats, which is the kind of story that tends to go viral on Reddit. Hey friends, if you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments. We genuinely want to know what you enjoy and what we can improve. What did you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future uploads? Your feedback helps us get better every day. Thanks for sticking with us. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her choice of bridesmaids. So, this is going to be long, but I really need to get this off my chest and hopefully get some outside perspective because my family is completely divided right now, and I honestly don't know if I'm the jerk. A bit of background. I, 29F, have a younger sister, Emily, 26F. We used to be really close growing up, like best friends, but as we got older, we've grown apart in some ways. Our personalities are really different. I'm very meticulous, organized, and enjoy a structured life, while Emily is more free-spirited, spontaneous, and frankly a little reckless sometimes. We still love each other, but we have our conflicts. Emily got engaged about a year ago, and since then, the wedding planning has been stressful, to put it mildly. I've been helping her a lot behind the scenes, researching venues, negotiating with vendors, offering advice about catering, seating arrangements, and even helping her pick a photographer. I thought this would make me feel closer to her again, but it's been kind of the opposite. The issue started when she announced her bridesmaids. She picked 4 people. Her 2 childhood friends, fine, no problem. 1 coworker, okay, a little odd, but whatever, and her fiancé's sister, who she barely knows. And then she gave a list of honorary bridesmaids, which were basically all of her high school friends, including a girl who had been extremely rude to me during our last family event. I tried to bring up that I didn't understand the distinction between bridesmaids and honorary bridesmaids because the whole thing seemed arbitrary, but she brushed me off and said, "It's my wedding. I can do what I want." Fair enough. Then came the big blow. She invited her fiancé's mother and sister to be involved in all of the planning meetings and decision-making, while my mother, who is divorced from my father and Emily's father, was only allowed to help with the floral arrangements. My dad was allowed to handle the seating charts, but any input from me was ignored or dismissed as overthinking. I tried to say that since I'm her sister and I've been helping with the planning, it felt like I was being sidelined, but she said, "You're being too controlling. Relax." Things got worse when she asked me to help pick the bridesmaids' dresses. I thought it would be fun, but she kept vetoing every suggestion I made. I suggested a few dresses that I knew fit the wedding theme and budget, but she would reply with "too boring, not chic enough, or this doesn't show my personality." Eventually, I realized that she had already bought all the dresses online without telling me. When I confronted her, she said, "I value your opinion. I just don't want you stressing over every detail. Don't take it personally." That's when I started to feel like my help wasn't wanted at all, and she was just going through the motions to avoid conflict. The final straw was last month. She asked me to coordinate the bridal shower. I spent weeks organizing it, sending invitations, booking a venue, ordering a cake, and making party favors. I even made a special playlist and planned games. The day of the shower, she arrived with her fiancé's friends and family and completely ignored all the planning. She started rearranging the decorations, changing the games, and critiquing the food choices. At one point, she even asked the caterer to remove a dish that I had suggested and personally picked. I tried to speak up, but she said, "Stop micromanaging. Just let me enjoy this." It was humiliating. I ended up leaving early because I was so frustrated and hurt. After that, I told her I was feeling undervalued and that if the wedding continued like this, I didn't know if I could attend. She got defensive and said, "If you don't want to be part of my big day, that's your choice, but don't guilt me." I didn't respond immediately because I needed to think. Over the past few weeks, she's sent me multiple texts and emails asking me to be there, to just be happy for her, and even offered to let me pick my own seat at the ceremony and skip some of the planning duties. I told her I appreciated the offer, but that it wasn't just about logistics. It's about feeling respected and valued. She accused me of holding a grudge and being dramatic, and my parents are split. My mom thinks I'm overreacting and should just go, while my dad says Emily has been dismissive and that my feelings are valid. I know it might sound extreme to refuse to attend a sibling's wedding, but I genuinely feel like I would just be a guest in a celebration that has intentionally sidelined me. I don't want to ruin her day, but at the same time, I don't want to feel like my contributions, my time, and my relationship with her are meaningless. I've tried talking to her calmly and explaining my perspective, but she either ignores it or brushes it off. Friends outside the family are split too. Some say I'm justified because it's obvious she's excluding me and prioritizing other people's opinions. But others say I should just suck it up for one day, even if it's uncomfortable, because family weddings are about showing up. I don't want to create permanent damage, but right now, I just feel like I can't celebrate with her authentically. If I go, I'll be faking happiness, and I don't think that's fair to anyone, including her. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how she's treated me during the planning and because of her choice of bridesmaids and sidelining me. AITA for refusing to host my mother-in-law for a month, even though she says she needs help. I, 34F, have been married to my husband, David, 36M, for 8 years. We live in a moderately sized apartment in a busy city. Our apartment is nice, but not huge. 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, and a living room that's barely enough for us and occasional guests. We both work full-time, and our schedules are hectic, so privacy and routines are very important to us. David's mother, Marjorie, 62F, recently had some health issues that required minor surgery. She recovered well, but she has been acting as though she is incapable of handling life on her own. She called David and said she didn't want to stay alone for a month while she recovered and that she needed to stay with us. She framed it as a necessity, saying, "You've always been there for me, and now I need your help." I immediately had reservations. While I don't mind occasional visits, hosting someone full-time for a month in a small apartment is a big deal. We have routines, work obligations, and personal space that we can't just abandon. I try to suggest alternatives. She could stay in a short-term rental nearby, or we could help hire a caregiver, or even have her stay with one of her other children who live closer. But she dismissed all of them, saying, "I only feel comfortable with my own son and his wife." David initially seemed hesitant but sympathetic to his mother. He said it would be helpful for her to stay with us and easier for everyone. I expressed my concerns clearly. Our apartment isn't big enough for that long of a stay. We have work schedules that wouldn't allow us to take care of her full-time, and we'd be sacrificing our own mental health. I suggested a compromise where she could stay a weekend or maybe a few days at a time. Marjorie called this unacceptable and claimed that I was being selfish and cold. Things escalated when she arrived unannounced a week later. David hadn't confirmed with me, and suddenly she was at our door with bags, expecting to move in immediately. I was furious. I told her firmly that she couldn't stay in our apartment full-time. She responded by saying that I owed her and that family should support each other. I reminded her that supporting her doesn't mean abandoning our lives for an entire month. Marjorie has now been making passive-aggressive comments and sending messages to both of us, implying that I am ungrateful and uncaring. She's also started calling David multiple times a day, insisting he convince me to let her stay. He's been caught in the middle, and our relationship has become tense because he feels torn between his mother and me. I offered other help. We arranged for her meals to be delivered, we set up rides to her medical appointments, and we even offered to check in with her via video calls daily. She refused all of these, claiming they weren't enough. I also suggested she take a short stay at a nearby friend's house or a hotel where we could visit her, but she insisted she needed to be here with her son. I've been trying to enforce boundaries, but it has been stressful. I feel guilty because she is family and I know she needs help, but I also feel that allowing her to stay for a month in our tiny apartment would create chaos and resentment. I've never been this confrontational with family before, but her behavior feels entitled and controlling. David keeps asking me to just let it slide, to keep his mother happy, but I fear that giving in now will only encourage more unrealistic expectations in the future. We've argued several times about this, and the tension is spilling over into our marriage. I love my mother-in-law, but I also have to protect our space and sanity. Even some friends have weighed in, and the advice is divided. Some say I should just let her stay because she needs help, but others agree that it's reasonable to set limits and not give up your life for a month, especially when alternative solutions exist. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my mother-in-law for a month, even though she says she needs help, and my husband seems sympathetic. Character count, 6,629 if you want. I can create an even longer, high-drama family conflict story with moral ambiguity and escalating tension, aimed to feel extremely viral for Reddit readers. Do you want me to do that next? AITA for not letting my sister's new husband take over our family business, even though he knows better. I, 32F, come from a family that owns a small but fairly successful bakery in our town. It's been in the family for 3 generations. My parents started it, my older brother helped manage it for years, and now I've basically been running it for the last 5 years after my brother moved to another city for work. My parents are semi-retired, but still involved occasionally. I've always been proud to carry on the family tradition, and honestly, I love the work and the community relationships we've built. About a year ago, my younger sister, 28F, got married to her husband, David, 30M. David is charming, outgoing, and works in marketing, but he has zero experience in baking, running a small business, or anything remotely related. From the start, he's been very vocal about how he thinks the bakery could be modernized and expanded for real profit, which, honestly, sometimes feels like criticism more than advice. It started small, like suggesting we use fancier coffee cups or change the layout of the shop. I politely listened and sometimes tried minor tweaks. Then, around 6 months ago, he suggested we invest in expensive equipment, completely overhaul our menu, and even bring in a full staff of professional consultants he knew from his previous marketing job. He framed it as helping the family business grow, but it felt like he was implying I was doing it wrong. I tried to explain that our bakery is profitable and beloved exactly because it has a small, local, handmade feel, not because we follow every trend. He brushed it off, saying, "You're too emotionally attached to old ways. You need a professional approach." That rubbed me the wrong way. I felt like he was undermining me in my own family's business. Then, things escalated. Last month, my parents left town for a 2-week trip and trusted me to manage everything. David showed up almost every day, trying to implement his changes while I was busy handling customers and staff. He rearranged the bakery, brought in a new cash register system without consulting anyone, and even changed recipes to improve efficiency, which ended up backfiring. We had complaints from loyal customers, and a few staff members quit because they felt micromanaged. I asked him to step back, and he got defensive, saying I was holding the business back out of stubbornness. The breaking point came when he suggested that since I wasn't progressive enough, he should officially take over management while I observe and learn. I refused outright. I reminded him that this is my family's business, and I've been running it successfully, that my parents trust me, and that his interference was causing actual harm. He told me I was being territorial and overly emotional, and my sister started taking his side, saying I should let him help and stop being so controlling. I tried reasoning with my sister, pointing out specific instances where his changes were detrimental. Lost customers, staff quitting, wasted money. She said I was exaggerating and that David just has a different vision. She even hinted that if I didn't allow him more influence, our relationship would suffer. Now, my parents are back, and the tension is at an all-time high. David keeps pushing for more control. My sister is annoyed with me, and even some extended family members have started saying things like, maybe you should let him have a try. He seems so confident. I've been firm that I will not let him take over because it's my family's livelihood, and I have real experience and proven results. I know I could probably let him do some things, but I feel like once he gains even partial control, he'll try to dominate completely. I also feel hurt because it seems like my family trusts an outsider over me. I don't want to ruin my relationship with my sister, but I also can't risk our business being mismanaged for the sake of avoiding conflict. I've tried compromise, letting him handle minor marketing ideas or offering to implement some of his suggestions under my supervision, but he insists on full authority. My parents haven't explicitly told me to let him take over, but they haven't firmly backed me either. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's husband take over our family bakery, even though he claims he knows better and could make it more successful. AITA for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding because of a past incident that ruined our relationship. I, 32M, come from a moderately well-off family and have one younger brother, Ben, 28M. Growing up, Ben and I were very close, but things have changed a lot over the last few years. I work in tech and have been able to save a decent amount of money, while Ben has had a more unstable career path, bouncing between jobs in retail and freelance gigs. About 4 years ago, Ben was struggling financially and asked me to co-sign for an apartment lease because he couldn't get approved on his own. I was hesitant, but agreed, thinking that helping him once wouldn't hurt. Everything went fine for the first few months, but then things took a turn. Ben started missing rent payments, and when I asked about it, he would make excuses or blame me for not reminding him. Eventually, the landlord called me directly demanding the rent, and I had to cover the payments myself to avoid legal trouble. I tried to talk to Ben about it, but he accused me of being controlling and told me to mind my own business. The lease ended badly, and I ended up financially and emotionally drained. After that, I decided to distance myself from helping him with money. I still talk to him occasionally, but there's always tension. Fast forward to last year, Ben got engaged to his fiancée, Emily. They're planning a large wedding, and he started talking to the family about who would be contributing financially. My parents immediately assumed I would pay something because that's kind of the family tradition. They often cover large portions of weddings if they can. I was upfront with them and Ben. I told them that after what happened with the apartment, I do not feel comfortable financially supporting his wedding. I said I'd be happy to help in non-monetary ways, like helping with planning, attending, or helping with minor tasks, but I could not contribute money. Ben didn't take it well. He accused me of being selfish and said that I'm jeopardizing his wedding by not helping. He even said things like, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me," which completely confused me because I can't think of any time he ever supported me financially. My parents tried to mediate, suggesting that I at least chip in a small amount, but I stood firm. The tension escalated when Ben invited me to a family dinner to discuss the wedding budget. He brought a detailed spreadsheet with all costs and marked in red the parts he expected each family member to cover. My name had a large portion allocated. When I said I couldn't pay, he became visibly angry, and Emily chimed in, saying I'm being disrespectful and rude to your own family. Things got worse on social media. Ben started posting subtle jabs, like, "Some people in my family don't support me the way they should," and tagging me in wedding planning photos. I felt humiliated, but I still refused to pay. A week ago, my parents invited me over to try to smooth things over. They told me that if I didn't contribute, I might not be invited to the wedding at all, which honestly hurt because I do want to attend and support my brother in other ways. I explained that I can't risk my finances like that again, and that my decision is based on past experiences, not dislike for him or Emily. My parents said I'm being dramatic and that family should support each other, which made me feel like I'm being punished for setting boundaries. Here's the part that really confuses me. Some extended family members have reached out privately, asking me why I'm being so hard on Ben and suggesting that I should just pay and move on. Others have sided with me, saying that I am not obligated to repeat mistakes and that Ben has a history of being financially irresponsible. I want to attend the wedding, I want to be part of this milestone in my brother's life, and I want to maintain some kind of relationship. But I cannot bring myself to hand over money that I'm not comfortable with. I even offered to help with decorations, photography coordination, or other non-financial support, but apparently, that isn't enough for them. I can see both sides. I understand that weddings are expensive, and families often step in to help. I also understand that from Ben's perspective, it probably feels hurtful that I won't contribute. But from my perspective, I feel like past mistakes were ignored, and my attempt to set healthy boundaries are being punished. Now, the situation has escalated to the point where I feel like even attending the wedding might cause more drama than it's worth. I don't want to be disinvited or cause a family feud, but I also don't want to give in and regret it later. I feel stuck between protecting myself financially and being part of a family event that matters to my brother. So, AITA for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding after the apartment incident and setting clear boundaries, even though it's causing family tension. Character count, 6,525 if you want. I can draft an even longer, more dramatic version that pushes closer to 7,000 characters and includes more detailed family arguments, social media drama, and side conversations to make it feel like a viral Reddit post. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to change my wedding date because my sister wanted to hold her birthday party on the same weekend? I, 32F, have been engaged to my fiancé, Ryan, 34M, for about a year. We've been planning a wedding for next summer, and after months of searching, we finally booked a venue that we both love. It's a popular spot, so securing the date we wanted took some effort. From the beginning, we agreed we wanted a mid-June wedding, mostly because of availability and the weather. My younger sister, Olivia, 29F, has always been very particular about her birthday celebrations. She's never celebrated small or quietly. She always throws big parties. She recently told me that she wants to have her 30th birthday party on the exact weekend we booked for our wedding. She argued that her milestone birthday is a once-in-a-lifetime event and that everyone should be available for her celebration. I was surprised and told her that our wedding date had been booked months in advance and that it wasn't something I could easily change. I tried to explain that a wedding involves deposits, venue availability, catering, and invitations already being sent to family and friends. She immediately got upset and accused me of being selfish, saying, "This is my birthday, and you're literally asking everyone else to pick your wedding over me." I offered some compromises. I said she could hold her party the weekend before or after our wedding, or even celebrate earlier in a month, and I would make sure to attend and help plan it. She refused, insisting that only that exact weekend would work for her friends and that she deserved this because it's a milestone. Things escalated when she started sending passive-aggressive messages to my family, implying that I was inconsiderate for not moving my wedding. She even went as far as telling our parents that I didn't care about anyone else's important events, which caused tension at family gatherings. Our parents tried to mediate, but they seemed torn. They understand that a wedding requires fixed dates and planning, but they also empathize with Olivia wanting a big 30th birthday. At one point, my mom suggested that maybe I could move the wedding just a week earlier or later, but I explained that doing so would cost thousands in cancellation and rebooking fees and could potentially conflict with out-of-town guests. I also considered trying to book a larger or different venue to accommodate both events, but every good option for that weekend was already reserved. Changing the date entirely would mean postponing by months, which Ryan and I are not willing to do because of work schedules, financial reasons, and other commitments. Olivia has started making posts on social media, subtly criticizing me, hinting that I'm self-centered and not thinking about family milestones. My friends and extended family are divided. Some say I'm completely justified in keeping my wedding date, while others feel I should be flexible for family and accommodate my sister. I've tried explaining to Olivia that my wedding is a major life event that requires months of planning, and that while I want to celebrate her birthday, I can't realistically change the date. She has accused me of prioritizing my wedding over her happiness and said that I'm letting everyone down. Ryan supports me completely and agrees that changing the wedding date is unreasonable. He's tried talking to Olivia, but she refuses to listen and continues to insist that she's the one who should get priority for that weekend. I feel guilty because I love my sister and I understand this is her 30th birthday, but I also know that moving the wedding would cause a lot of logistical issues and financial stress. I'm trying to find a way to celebrate her milestone birthday in a meaningful way without compromising my wedding plans, but she seems unwilling to accept any solution that doesn't revolve around her preferred weekend. At this point, my family is frustrated, my sister is upset with me, and I feel like I'm stuck in a situation where no matter what I do, someone will be hurt. I'm trying to balance being a loving sister with protecting my own plans and sanity. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to change my wedding date, even though my sister wants to hold her milestone birthday party on the same weekend. Character count, 6,621 if you want. I can create another story with even more tension, multiple family conflicts, and moral ambiguity that's aimed to feel like a top viral Reddit post. AITA for refusing to let my father attend my wedding after he tried to control every detail and insulted my fiancé. I, 29F, have been planning my wedding with my fiancé, Alex, 31M, for over a year. We try to make it a day that reflects both of us, our personalities, and the life we want to start together. The problem started early in the planning process with my father, 55M. He has a very controlling personality and tends to insert himself into everything. And I should have expected some tension, but I didn't anticipate how far it would go. When we announced the engagement, my father immediately started giving unsolicited advice on everything: the venue, the guest list, the catering, even Alex's clothing. At first, we tried to politely listen and consider his suggestions, but it quickly became clear that he wasn't interested in compromise. Every time we made a decision, he would criticize it, saying things like, "That's not how a proper wedding should be done," or, "Are you sure Alex is going to make a good impression on our family?" The real breaking point came when he saw Alex's wedding suit. Alex had chosen a dark green suit with brown shoes, which he felt reflected his style and personality. My father called it hideous, disrespectful, and said it was embarrassing to our family. He also made a comment in front of my siblings about Alex being lucky I'm not banning him from the wedding for that outfit. I was furious and asked my father to stop insulting my fiancée. He brushed it off, saying I was too sensitive and that he was just trying to protect our family's reputation. It didn't stop there. My father started pressuring me to invite certain distant relatives I didn't want to include, insisting we needed a bigger wedding budget, and criticizing the food choices. He even suggested that we change the date to accommodate his schedule, which was completely unreasonable. I repeatedly explained that this day was about Alex and me, not him, but he refused to listen. He started sending long, passive-aggressive emails detailing how disappointed he was in our decisions and how he couldn't believe I would disrespect our family traditions. The final straw came when he demanded that we remove a particular song from the reception playlist because he said it was unacceptable and ruined the vibe of a wedding. Alex, being very calm and logical, politely explained that the song was meaningful to us and that it was our choice. My father responded by saying that Alex was pretentious and controlling and questioned whether I really knew him at all. He ended his email by stating that if we went ahead with the wedding as planned, he might not attend. At this point, I realized that if I let him attend, he would not only make the day stressful, but also humiliate Alex in front of everyone. I had to choose between my father being physically present and maintaining the peace or standing up for my fiancée and setting boundaries. After talking with Alex and my wedding planner, I decided that I could not allow my father to attend unless he agreed to respect our decisions and treat Alex with basic decency. I sent my father a message explaining that while I loved him, his behavior had become too toxic to allow him to attend the wedding. I outlined specific incidents where he insulted Alex and tried to control our plans, and I stated that unless he could genuinely commit to respecting us and our choices, he would not be welcome. I also offered to have a private lunch with him beforehand to talk things through, but he refused and instead accused me of being dramatic, throwing away our family, and choosing my fiancé over my father. After this, my mother called me, extremely upset. She said I was being cruel and that I should at least compromise to avoid family conflict. My siblings were divided. Some supported me, saying that my father had crossed every line, while others said I should give him a chance because it's my wedding and he might calm down eventually. The wedding day is coming up in a few weeks, and the tension in the family is palpable. My father has continued to make passive-aggressive social media posts about how sad he is and how family should always come first. I haven't responded. I've focused on making the day enjoyable for Alex and me, our friends, and the family members who respect our choices. I still feel guilty because I love my father, but I also know that letting him attend without setting boundaries would ruin one of the most important days of my life. I've tried multiple times to compromise, but every attempt was met with insults or attempts to control us. Alex has been incredibly supportive, and together we are trying to focus on what matters. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my father attend my wedding because he has been controlling, insulting my fiancé, and refusing to respect our decisions. Character count, 6,592 if you want. I can also create a version with multiple family members taking sides and escalating drama, making it even more chaotic and viral Reddit-worthy. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior towards my family? I, 28F, have always been very close to my younger sister, Emily, 25F. We grew up sharing everything, from clothes to secrets, and even as adults, we've always leaned on each other. When Emily announced her engagement to a man named Derek, 30M, I was genuinely happy for her. I wanted her to have someone who made her happy, but over the last few months, my excitement has completely disappeared. The problem started shortly after they got engaged. Emily asked me to help with some wedding planning, which I was thrilled to do. However, it quickly became apparent that Derek was not only controlling but also dismissive of my family. For example, during a dinner where Emily introduced Derek to my parents, he outright criticized my mom's cooking and told my dad that his job wasn't impressive. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe he was nervous and trying to impress Emily, but the pattern kept repeating. He makes little jabs at my family whenever we meet, from criticizing their lifestyle choices to making passive-aggressive comments about our home. The tipping point came when he started demanding things from Emily regarding the wedding that directly impacted my family. He insisted that certain relatives, mainly my parents, shouldn't be seated near him during the ceremony or reception. He even suggested that my sister's maid of honor speech, which I am giving, should be heavily edited because he didn't like family stories that paint him in a bad light. Emily initially laughed it off, saying he was joking, but I could tell she was starting to bend to his will because she didn't want to cause conflict. I tried talking to Emily about it several times, expressing that Derek's behavior felt disrespectful to both me and our parents. Emily would nod, reassure me that she understood, but nothing changed. In fact, it got worse. Derek started subtly attacking my character whenever Emily and I talked in front of him. For instance, he once told Emily that I was overly dramatic for being upset that he insulted my mom's cooking. A few weeks ago, Emily asked me to come to their engagement party. Derek said he wanted a small, intimate gathering, which included only his friends and family and a few of Emily's relatives. But notably, he wanted to limit my parents' presence because he claimed they were too loud and opinionated. I was shocked. Emily seemed torn, but ultimately said she didn't want to upset Derek, so she agreed to a compromise that kept my parents at the party but seated separately from him. I decided to go, hoping that maybe it would be a one-time issue, but the night was a disaster. Derek openly ignored my parents, and when my dad tried to start a conversation, Derek cut him off and made a sarcastic comment about his work. Emily barely noticed, too busy trying to keep Derek happy. After that night, I knew I couldn't in good conscience attend their wedding if Derek was going to treat my family this way. I tried talking to Emily again, telling her that I wouldn't attend the wedding if things didn't change, explaining that it wasn't about her, It was about Derek's behavior. She got upset, accusing me of trying to control her wedding and saying that I was being dramatic. She said I should just suck it up for one day for her sake. I refused. I told her that attending under those circumstances would feel like condoning Derek's behavior, which I cannot do. Emily then stopped talking to me for a week, and my parents are furious that I'm taking this stance. My mom said I was being selfish and that weddings are supposed to be about compromise, while my dad says I'm letting someone else's bad behavior ruin family bonds. Emily has sent me several messages begging me to reconsider, even implying that our relationship could be permanently damaged if I don't attend. Part of me feels guilty because I don't want to hurt Emily on one of the most important days of her life. But at the same time, I can't ignore Derek's behavior, and I don't want to pretend everything is fine when I know he will treat my family with disdain. I also don't think Emily will stand up to him, and I feel like my absence is the only way to make a statement without causing a scene at the wedding. My friends are split on the issue. Some say I should go to support my sister no matter what, while others agree that it's important to set boundaries, especially with someone as controlling as Derek seems to be. I just don't know if I'm overreacting. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior towards my family. AITA for refusing to let my brother and his wife stay in my house after they refused to follow my rules and trash my guest room. I, 31F, live in a modest but comfortable 3-bedroom house in the suburbs. I love having guests, and I've always welcomed family and friends when they needed a place to stay. About a month ago, my brother, Tom, 33M, and his wife, Lisa, 32F, asked if they could stay at my house for a week because they were redecorating their home. At first, I was happy to help. They're my family, and I thought it would be fun to catch up. Before they arrived, I made it clear that my house has rules. I asked that they respect the bedrooms, avoid smoking indoors, and not bring over uninvited guests. I also mentioned that the guest room they'd be staying in has delicate furniture, including a vintage dresser that's been in our family for decades. I specifically said that I didn't want it moved or used for heavy objects. Tom and Lisa agreed and seemed fine with these rules. The first day was fine. We had dinner together, talked, and caught up. But on the second day, I noticed the guest room looked different. The dresser had been moved, some drawers were partially emptied, and a heavy box was on top that wasn't supposed to be there. I asked Lisa about it, and she said, "Oh, we just thought it would be easier for our stuff." I reminded them that I had specifically asked them not to touch the furniture, and she rolled her eyes, saying, "It's not like it's that fragile." Tom chimed in, "We're family, don't make a big deal out of it." Over the next few days, things got worse. They started leaving dirty dishes in the guest room, eating in there even though I had said meals should be in the kitchen or dining room, and bringing friends over without asking. One evening, I went to check on the room and found that a plant had been knocked over, soaking the carpet, and the dresser now had scratches on the surface. I confronted them, and they shrugged it off, saying, "Accidents happen. Don't be so uptight." I tried to stay calm, explaining that I wasn't upset about small things, but about the repeated disregard for my house rules. By day 5, I realized this wasn't going to change. I asked them to clean up the guest room, repair the scratches if possible, and follow the rules for the remaining nights. Tom got defensive, saying I was being controlling and that they shouldn't have to tiptoe around in their sister's house. Lisa added that it was supposed to be a relaxing vacation, and that my rules were ruining it. I reminded them that it was my house and my rules, not an unreasonable request, but they continued to argue. On the 6th night, I came home from work to find the room in complete disarray. The dresser drawers were pulled out, clothes were thrown on the floor, and the carpet was soaked again, this time from spilled wine. That was the last straw. I told them that they would need to leave immediately. Tom yelled that I was overreacting and ruining family time, while Lisa said I was mean and controlling. I told them that their behavior had consequences and that I couldn't have people disrespecting my home. They left that night, but the tension hasn't died down. Since then, my parents and some extended family have called me, saying I was too harsh and that I should have forgiven them or let it slide because they're family. I feel conflicted because I don't want to be estranged from my brother, but I also feel like I was completely reasonable. I made rules up front, communicated clearly, and asked for respect. Instead, they blatantly ignore my boundaries and cause damage. I also tried to explain to my parents that my house and my rules are not optional and that my tolerance has limits. I offered to help my brother repair or replace the damaged dresser, but I didn't want to excuse the behavior. Some family members say I should apologize and invite them back, while others understand that boundaries are important. I feel hurt and frustrated because I wanted to be generous and welcoming, but my kindness was taken for granted and treated like an invitation to disrespect my home. I also feel guilty because family drama is stressful, and I never imagined that a week-long visit would end in this much tension. I just don't want to compromise my comfort and safety in my own house for anyone, even family. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my brother and his wife stay in my house after they refused to follow my rules and cause damage to my guest room. Character count, 6,243. I can also write a version with more dramatic escalation, including the fallout at a family gathering and passive-aggressive social media posts, which is the type of story that tends to go viral on Reddit. Do you want me to do that? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss new uploads. And feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean the world to me. See you in the next video.